Welcome into Celtics Late Night. My name is Ben Vallis. Thank you for joining us. Hope you are managing the stress and the pain of this 0-3 hole we find ourselves in as Celtics fans. Alongside me, Jake Eisenberg. Jake, I'd ask how you're doing, but I have a sense of how you're doing. How's things?
This was supposed to be fun, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
We just start doing this late night show after the Garden Report. At the end of the second round, Jason Tatum just had 51 points to send us to the conference finals. We get this opportunity to do this fun late night show here in Australia. The sun's shining. You guys come on in. We grab a drink. We talk about the good times.
What's the opposite of undefeated? Because that's what we are in the Celtics Late Night era. Undefeated or just purely defeated. So much to get into. None of it good. Thanks everyone for joining us. We can see you all filing in after a long version of the Garden Report there, and a shout out to all those guys on the Garden Report for teeing us up here on the late night show. Quick introduction, given this is only our third ever installment of Celtics Late Night. We're from the First to the Floor Celtics podcast, which is part of the CLNS network. We've been doing the pod for about 5 years over there. We've got our own YouTube channel. You can find it on all podcast platforms and said YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this show and the vibe and the format of this show, head over to one of our many content streams, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc., for more similar content, and make sure you find us there and subscribe. Jake, I'm completely rudderless going into this one. Like, I'm looking at our run sheet now, and it's literally like a blur, like traffic lights late at night, like blurring my eyes. I guess we'll just start with the game. We probably have to start with the game, and somewhat just to credit the Heat a little bit, as much as it pains me to say. Like, the Heat have been very good, and yes, there's a bed shitting element from the Celtics side, which we'll cover in great detail. The Celtics lose 128 to 102. The Celtics actually killed the Heat in core statistics like rebounding, second chance points, and points in the paint. Hang a banner.
Nice.
But it wasn't enough with Derek White starting and us going away from double big. The pendulum swings back in favor of Joe as he gets his preferred lineup back. The Celtics that came out with good intent. Derek Love, Kevin Love. That's my porn name. He goes down early. And the Celtics, I thought, came out with a lot of really good intent. They were hitting shots. We saw Jaylen Brown mid-range turnarounds actually going in, and you're starting to cook up some of those feelings, Jake. Like, oh, here we go. The Celtics are back. They were not back. Everything very much went downhill from there, Jake. What are I guess, just your main, we don't have to spend too much time on the game, but what are your main takeaways from this one?
The Heat made the Celtics play left-handed in this series, and we did not have a counter. Took away driving lanes, and you make the quick read, the quick pass, and the shots aren't going in. And on the other end, the Heat again the defense I thought looked mostly good in the first quarter, but the Heat again 5 for 10 from 3 in the first quarter. Heat up 8. It was just like, man. And I understand people feel like they quit or whatever. I think there was an element to them waving the white flag, obviously, in this game. But whatever the game plan was, did not work in, honestly, 3 of the games, but especially in this game. And that's demoralizing when you're talking about how to adjust, how to go into a game, and the same thing keeps happening to you over and over and over again. Turnovers, 3-point shooting from the other team. But yeah, you're right. Like even when Jaylen was hitting those shots early, 4 for 7 in the first quarter, there was still a tunnel vision to his game. He was missing guys in the corner. There was easy reads that he was missing, and he was knocking down shots, but he wanted to save the Celtics. He tried to save the Celtics, and I appreciate him trying to come out with that fire. But against this Heat team, like this Heat team is a bad Yeah, Missoula with a game plan. Are we sure there was one? I think there was one. It clearly didn't work. This Heat team is a really bad matchup for the Celtics. Obviously, what they try and do gets taken away by this team, and whether that's a Spoelstra coach team or, I mean, obviously it's a Spoelstra coach team, but it's a personnel thing as well. The Warriors were able to do it as well. Teams that have players that are able to get up into guys, get hands in passing lanes. Honestly, when Pritchard cut the lead to 21, this is how much of a sicko I was. I was like,
yes, I was right there with you.
Could we do it? Could this be the moment that Peyton Pritchard saves the Boston Celtics season? I don't know, man. Where did you go after, like, I don't know, 8 minutes in?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the little wins for the Celtics, Peyton Pritchard just elevating his trade value in the offseason just by a little bit there. If there's one positive to take away from this. But yeah, we talked about Kevin Love going out. So Caleb Martin comes in. He's just continues to be red hot along with the rest of the Heat, really. They shot 54.3% from three in this game. The Celtics shot 26% from three. Like, I mean, if you just want to zoom out and look at one statistic, I talked about we won like the rebounding battle and points in the paint, fast break points, all this stuff. You just look at the 3-point disparity there. And like, unfortunately, that's just it. And we'll get into like the Missoula like basketball approach and strategy later, and why like essentially like if you're not hitting your threes, then you have zero chance of winning. We saw Eric Spoelstra call that out in the huddle in the last game. But Kevin Love goes out, Caleb Martin comes in, and then at about the 6-minute mark in the first, we go back to double big. Rob Williams comes in, Al Horford stays out there. We go back to double big, which is like the antithesis of that Heat lineup, which is like, no, that's not going to work. They've got floor spaces out there. Clearly, this hasn't worked. And then Joe, like you've clearly like won the locker room battle of like, no guys, I'm going to go back to my principles, and we're going to play basically 5-out basketball, no double big. And then you just like sway back to double big halfway through the game at a time where like the Heat personnel just doesn't sort of match that approach at all. Completely mind-boggling.
Yeah,
and that was early in the game.
Yeah, he was guessing, and like Grant plays 30 minutes tonight after not playing in game one. Like, I thought it had to be Rob to start today. The only thing that worked in this series up to today was the Tatum and Rob pick and roll. And it even worked a little bit when Rob did come in. He picked up those 2 quick fouls. Obviously, it's a butterfly effect. We have no idea what would have happened if Rob started the game instead of Al. But part of why I wanted Rob to start, not just because they'd actually found success with Tatum and Rob in the game earlier, and the just mind-boggling decision to not go back to Rob in the fourth quarter, but to not go back to Rob in the starting lineup now, not just because of the offense, but defensively, it's so clear that Al can't hang with Bam, right? Like Bam gets his shoulder past him, hits him with the jab either way, and Bam's kind of like getting into these really dangerous positions. It's just not the good matchup for Al. He defended Embiid perfectly because Embiid's slow. He can like use his body and stay in front. Bam's much quicker. How many times we have to see him get cooked on like quicker switches? Like Al, not quite the same guy defensively. No one on this team was the same guy defensively this whole year. But yeah, look, mate, get all the boomers in. Giddey, Josh Green, Patty Mills. That could be the answer. Strategy. That could be the answer. Get like if nothing else, those guys are dogs.
At least there'd be an identity. Let's just rattle through the rest of the game points, because for no other reason than like I just don't want to talk about it because it sucked a lot. And I need to, it's that time of the year where you're starting to try and remember like what your other hobbies are. What else like makes up my personality other than just like obsessing over the Celtics? I haven't quite been able to recall yet. We lost the turnover battle 15-9. The Jays shot 1 for 14 from 3, and both Jays aggregated were outscored by Gabe Vincent, which is a lot of fun. Bad perimeter defense by pretty much the entire team. I thought I initially my first note that I took in the game was great perimeter defense by Derek White, who was like chasing Max Strus around screens. And then unfortunately, Derek White became the sole focal point of the Miami Heat offense, and predominantly Jimmy Butler just getting him in isolation with all of the defenders on the other side of the court. and just going to work. And we saw the occasional double, I think, late in the first half. And then peppered throughout the second half, we saw doubles and traps and like different types of defenses thrown at Jimmy Butler. But for the most part, it was just Derek White being absolutely taken to school by Jimmy Butler, which was not fun for us watching at home. Can't imagine it was particularly fun for Derek White. And then, yes, we'll wait a little bit before we get into the coaching conversation, but I can't imagine it's very fun for the guys on the team looking around at each other thinking, really, is this the look we're giving Jimmy Butler again? Like, why, Jake?
What? They try, and this is what they look. We have to credit the Heat. Like,
of course.
I think, as obviously as a Celtics perspective, this hurts so much because we believed we were the better team, and I talked about it last time. Like, we have been convinced not only by ourselves, by the media, by the betting companies, that we are by far the better team. The 97% to 3% ESPN model was obviously ridiculous, but like, the Celtics were the better team throughout the year. But the Heat have been the best team in the Eastern Conference since the playoffs started. Literally from the last 3 minutes of the second play-in game, where they were on the absolute brink of losing to the Chicago Bulls, down by like 6 or 7 with 5 minutes to go, and they bring it back to taking down the Bucks, taking down the Knicks, going up 3-1, and now on the verge of sweeping the Celtics. Outside of the Nuggets, they've been the best team in the playoffs. So like you at some point you have to let go of what we thought they were and what we saw in the regular season, because they're a different team on both ends defensively. Jimmy turns into a top 5 player. Top 5, honestly, top 3. It's like Steph, Jokic, and Jimmy. Those have been the best 3 players in the playoffs, and it's not really an argument. So yes, I was convinced that we were going to win the series. I was convinced we were the better team, but then you watch it and like you can't think that now. Right?
The Heat, they're also just so good at attacking like everything that the Celtics are bad at. All the little weaknesses, whether it be actual X's and O's on the court weaknesses or mental weaknesses, the Heat know all of those things. Like probably clearly better than the Celtics know that about themselves. And they're just so handsy in the paint. They're so good at like guarding our pick and roll actions and the way that they guard the screener on like specific actions. Like if it's Al, who is the screener who might pop, versus Rob, who is the screener who might roll, blocking the passing lanes that open up or should open up against other opponents as a result of those screens. The Heat, you watch it, it's so frustrating because it's just like, not only are the buckets and the rebounds and all the little victories on the court hard fought, but even just a made pass without a turnover seems like the most difficult thing. And it's exhausting to watch. And so, the guys obviously gave up today. I'm not forgiving them. I'm not excusing them. But like at some point, you just like get beaten to a pulp, on all fronts. And I'm not going to say it's hard to blame them because it's very easy and somewhat cathartic to blame them. But you can see why it gets to that point, I guess is what I'm saying. And the other thing is the Heat, and this goes back to at least the 2020 bubble playoffs now, they do have a mental edge over us, exactly like we have a mental edge over the Philadelphia 76ers. Like we have found ourselves back against the wall against the Sixers and kind of just not caring, like this just knowledge, this assumption, it's entitlement that we will be able to fight our way out of it because we're the Celtics and they're the Sixers. The Heat have that over us. They just do. Like I defy anyone in the chat or you, Jake, to tell me otherwise, but we feel it here at home. We're based in Australia. I feel like the city of Miami breathing down my neck from here. Like it's a thing. Jake, am I wrong?
Yeah, it's them. The Warriors had the same mental edge and it's a similar team. You left out Jaylen Brown's ability to cover anyone off ball. Another weakness that the Duncan Robinson just poked and prodded at over and over again.
Of all people.
Like, to see him getting those like wide open back cuts on Jaylen Brown for layups. So painful. It's crazy, man. Like he was out of the rotation. Out of the rotation. Tyler Hero getting injured may have been the worst thing that ever happened to us because he went down and the Heat turned into one of the best teams we've seen all season. They absolutely, no question, feel confident playing against us. Like going back to the regular season where we have that video of Jimmy Butler missed the first game. It was like a home and home with the Heat, right? And it was Tatum that goes off for 46 and in front of the prince and the princess, and it's good times. And then Jimmy Butler comes in and have that video on the plane with him going, Boston, see you soon.
Oh.
And he does this with everybody.
Fuel. Nightmare fuel. I never want to see Jimmy Butler again in my life. Go Nuggets.
Go Nuggets.
I guess.
Interesting. What do we do? They absolutely feel comfortable playing against us. And I think that feeds into where the Celtics ended up from an identity perspective. Why I think we won that series last year was because of our defense. Because the offense all series long was an issue. And with the turnovers, all the games we lost was like 18, 20 plus turnover games. But we had the elite defense to help us get stops and to help us like create easier offense. But that is true. Florida has more. Well, Florida has literally a guy that won like 20 world champions. So it's kind of a moot point. But
yeah, I would also rather live in Australia than Florida. I say that quite decisively. Sorry, Jake, I interrupted you.
That's easy. Maybe that's the second half of this pod. Florida versus Australia. Yeah. But yeah, it's the level of comfort that the Heat feel against us, and the Celtics didn't have another way to win this year. And once the Heat took it away, Bill Belichick, the Patriots coach, is like famous for taking what teams like to do away, whether it's your number one receiver, the running game, whatever it is. He makes you play left-handed, quote unquote. And the Celtics driving kick game was how we became an elite team. And you can look at how many screen grabs you can watch, how many times Tatum had the ball. There's so many guys in the paint. And the only way for us to loosen the defense up was to hit early shot clock threes off single passes, because for whatever reason, no one was comfortable, capable of driving into the lane. You would Tatum throw a bullet pass to Derek White, who has not looked comfortable or confident dribbling the ball since Atlanta for like 6 weeks now. And no more evident in these Heat games where he catches it and it looks like he's got a step on Gabe Vincent and he's like, does his half spin, backs him down, then dribbles it back out and just passes it to the perimeter. And it's like, yeah, you didn't turn the ball over, but now we're down to 8 seconds on the shot clock and Tatum has to force it into the lane and it just causes another turnover or even worse shot. So like the drive and kick game was completely taken away and there was no other solution. How many Tatum post-ups did we see in this series? 0?
I've got to be less than 2.
0? Like, which I still am just confounded that that's something that we do not go to, because it's something that always leads to good offense, whether it's him getting to the line or because he's so strong, he can back guys down. It brings defenses over at least a little bit, and it makes those passes so much easier and leads to easier shots. It just felt like if those things were not working, the Celtics had no alternative, and then that impacted them on the defensive end, which is something that I think happens to a lot of teams, but it especially happened to this team today, where they could not figure out the offense, and then the defensive intensity just started dropping slowly, and you get demoralized because even when you are playing good defense, Gabe Vincent's hitting just like some naughty stuff in your face.
Mm-hmm. And we all know that the best offense for this team, for almost really any like solid NBA team, is generated out of really, really good defense. It's why the team was so successful last year with lesser personnel. And it comes down to, an identity crisis, which ties back into the coaching, which we'll get to in a second. Just to quickly wrap on the game here, because I don't think we can spend much time talking about it because it was such a nightmare. Like, credit the Heat. I guess they generated some good shots, but they also hit like a lot of BS. I think we saw Gabe Vincent like spin out of / reject a screen on the wing there and spin into like a semi-contested 3-point make. And that just like told the story of the Heat versus the Celtics in this one, where it's like, yes, they are hitting crazy shots, but there's a mentality to it. There's a confidence, there's a mental edge over the Celtics. And like, you're putting your shot up with like powered by that mentality, powered by that mental edge, and that your shots are so much more likely to go in. The Heat also, you talk about the 3-point shooting, 15 of 17 at the rim in this game, including like
Jeez.
maybe Bam Adebayo's 3 best
Oh
dunks
man.
of the year, all in one game, as if it wasn't painful enough. And then just little things. Good Marcus Smart up the court, like breathing down his neck in transition. Just everyone, the directive and the discipline across all of the Heat, 1 through 15 on their roster, is so clear, and it permeates through the roster. The fact that Cody Zeller took it upon himself to like hustle and hassle Marcus Smart all the way up the court on multiple possessions, and just like trouble Smart and stop him from like getting into the action and initiating the offense, mostly because he couldn't wave one hand around because he needed it to protect himself from Cody Zeller. Like, what the hell, man? What the hell? And then Jimmy Butler on one knee doing the timeout tee to Al Horford. That's like, it's like staring into the sun. Like you have to look at it. You can't look away. It hurts.
You have to look.
It's probably bad for you.
This is the game, man.
That's right. Sorry.
No. Like this is you have to look into it, bro. You have to, if you're gonna play this game of sports, NBA, fandom, you're gonna talk your stuff to, talk your shit across other teams and dish it out. You got to be willing to take Jimmy Butler trolling you. And man, he's an underrated troll. Like to absolutely nail the Al Horford timeout celebration, to like even got on the one knee. It's like, is this guy just watching film on, like, the Celtics don't talk trash. Like they don't like Al Horford is pretty low key. Like the fact that Jimmy Butler knows that Al Horford likes to do this timeout thing is pretty niche. I feel like only people that watch Celtics podcasts would know something like that. And so for Jimmy Butler to have that in there is kind of scary.
Well, Al did it in the first game in one of the brief little windows of time where it looked like we might have a decent series. And I think maybe he was channeling that. I don't know exactly. But yeah, I mean, these guys, they watch film, they do their research. Why would it end with the X's and O's? Get down into the idiosyncrasies of the team, get down into their little celebrations and the things they do that when they're winning, so that you can shove it back in their faces and the faces of all of us as fans while we're watching. So much pain, but yeah, like respect to Jimmy Butler. Like that was a great troll response.
I'd say at one point, it was the first play of the third quarter. We come in, Marcus Smart gets the offensive rebound and one, yelling.
A tsunami of hope washes over you, right? Watching from home, like, this is it. They found themselves.
Hope sprang eternal for like 41 seconds. 41 seconds is what we had. And that was it.
All right. Well, look, before we move on, a break to talk about our sponsor, FanDuel. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs, because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. I love FanDuel, rather. They've got great promotions every day, safe and secure app, and you get paid instantly, which is rare among other betting apps and platforms. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/Boston and get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. 21 plus in select states. First online real money wager only. $10 deposit required. Refund issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, or Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Call 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas. Call 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming or visit www.1800gambler.net in West Virginia. Jake, do you have a parlay, a same-game parlay that you might be looking to tee up?
I don't have a parlay for you, but I do. What I would do if you were someone that was wanting to take advantage of this potential no sweat first bet up to $1,000, I would be probably putting. It would have been better to do it yesterday, but you can just put up to $1,000 on the Nuggets to win the title, and that gets you back. It's not the best odds, but that brings you back, 1,454. Or I don't know how much you believe in the Heat, but like if you want to swing it the other way and do it on the Heat, I just think that the Nuggets are going to clean the Heat's clock at this point. So that's where I'd be putting my hard-earned dollars if I was going to take advantage of the no sweat first bet. But betting on the Celtics at this point is not something I would advise.
Yeah, there's an emotional hedge to be done here, right? By at least getting out with a bit of money as a result of this devastating end to the Celtics season. Let's move on to some broader questions now that we've got the game and the ad read out of the way. Are we getting I'm kind of going sports radio here because I don't necessarily believe this is a legitimately good question, but are we getting outcoached or outplayed? Or is it both in this series, Jake?
It's definitely both. Definitely both. I think it started with getting outcoached and it ended with getting outplayed.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Heat started to take what we like to do away well, and we haven't really adjusted to a single thing besides lineup stuff, which we've tried a little bit of, but not a lot of, and then outplayed, right? At some point, you just need to make shots. It was cool that Al Horford decided to I can't believe I almost slandered Al Horford. A beautiful, beautiful man. But Al Horford went 2 for 5 from 3 today. We needed that last game.
Mm-hmm.
We needed that in game 1. The Celtics could have easily won games 1 and 2 if some of the other players turned up with Jason Tatum. I thought the only guys that turned up through games 1 and 2 was Tatum and Brown. Tatum wasn't perfect down the stretch in either of those games, but those games could have been 15, 20-point leads if the rest of the team was hitting shots, and they weren't. So, yeah, I thought it was out coaching, but then it kind of eventually today, I think that's just outplayed.
Yeah, so out coached is clear, and I think we all knew that going into the series, but that potentially that wouldn't matter just because of the talent disparity the Celtics have over the Heat. And yet clearly that's not the case. But, there's a lot of talk about, if it is the players, or if it is the coach. If it is the players, but the real issue is that they're not motivated to play for this coach. Isn't it then the coach? At least as far as problem solving and what you need to do moving forward. You're not just going to trade the whole team. You're not going to trade the Jays. If anything, you're hoping to lock up the Jays more long term, particularly Jaylen Brown, who's extension eligible now after making All NBA. So therefore, I guess we can get into this now, but you kind of have to think about moving on from Joe Mazzulla.
It's going to be so interesting because, fair or unfair, Joe got put in a really tough spot. This was not the plan. It was not the plan for a guy that has not been the head coach anywhere really. You go through his resume and it's kind of shocking at how little experience he has relative to every other NBA head coach. But what were they supposed to do? It was a week before the NBA season started. The mistake from Brad was removing the interim tag. That being said,
I understand why they did that.
Yeah, right. You want to instill belief, you want to empower the coach, you want all of those things. They won 57 games. Tatum got better. Jaylen got better. Derek White was really good. They were really, really good. Joe did a lot of good things in the regular season, but there has never been a bigger gap between the regular season and the playoffs. No more so than today's NBA with load management, with the way that the game is reffed, with the intensity from regular season to playoffs. It has never been more different. And you can see that with the Lakers being a 7 seed, making it all the way to the conference finals. The Heat are going to probably go to the NBA finals as an 8 seed. We're now entering kind of, territory that hasn't been seen before. And is this a one-off, or is this going to be a trend? We will see, but it feels kind of like a trend. People have been taking the regular season less and less seriously for years. So as cool as it was to be the 2 seed and have all these awesome regular season stats, they don't matter when you get to the playoffs. And if you can't adjust and if you can't take your game to another level, then it doesn't matter. And this is why I don't think it's purely on Joe. I think it's on the players as well. But there's a lot of really, really experienced coaching options available.
Mhm.
And Joe Mazzulla he could be really good. He was his first try. But we don't know.
Exactly.
Can you risk that right now?
We don't know. And at least some of these other coaching candidates out there are known entities as far as like I could sort of expect what I'm going to get out of them and maybe to some degree expect a little bit more buy-in from the team. Like I'm not full fire Joe. I'm undecided and I'm still sort of processing what happened tonight.
Very
And
clever,
I
Ben.
really thought that thank you, that the Celtics would win this game. We wouldn't be having this conversation, but like, I think it's difficult to balance what's fair and what's sort of necessary. And it's probably unfair. Like, you know, all the criticism heading Joe's way, he has made some genuine and now repeated coaching errors in the regular season and certainly in the postseason and certainly in this series alone. Given the circumstances under which he came into the team, under a normal, like, HR, like, work circumstances, it would be very unfair to terminate someone's employment given those circumstances. But you know, we've got this window. We've got the Jays who are just heading into their prime, and I think that's a little bit to blame as well. Not to digress too much, but like neither of the Jays technically are into what is historically considered the age prime in the NBA, so that's something as well. But like if we're just not getting buy-in from the guys into the scheme that Joe's running, like is he going to be able to turn that around? And are you potentially wasting the Jays' prime years waiting to see if Joe can put the pieces of the puzzle together when you could just be running it back with a more established coach that might be able to get more out of the Jays, might be able to get them to gel, sooner rather than later. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. This is going to be very interesting from Brad. Very tough spot to be in. Like, if the Celtics take this series to, like, if they did take this series to 7 and it was hard fought and, like, you could just be like, the Heat were a little bit better. It wasn't on the coaching, or they make the finals and lose to the Nuggets, you know, you feel fine. But the way that this playoffs has gone, and I've been someone who's definitely been a Joe Mazzulla defender because I think a lot of this falls on the players, a lot of this falls on the coach. I think there's a lot of blame to go around. And you look back to last year where, you know, they dropped game 1 against Milwaukee, game 5 against Milwaukee, game 1 against Miami, game 3 against Miami at home, game 6 against Miami at home. But they eventually got it done to a point where I think most people, well, I felt like last season was like a definite success, definite step forward. The Celtics were 50-1 to win the NBA Finals before last season even started. So I thought last season was absolutely a success and an overachieving of expectations. This is going to be not meeting expectations, especially the way that it ended up falling. Unless like this Heat team is actually just like the way that they're executing and playing is, it's even hard to rationalize when you're talking about whether or not they fell short of expectations or not. Because like if the Heat are actually this good, which they are really, I guess at this point, then the problem is we're down 0-3 and we went and we Peyton Pritchard and Luke Cornett brought this score back. Like I really appreciate the Peyton Pritchard Boston Tea Party led crew bringing this lead down to 26 because it was like should have been 40 plus.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look as bad. When you go out like this, you know, this is why when Monty Williams gets fired. This is why Joe Mazzulla might get fired.
Yeah, and someone just had a comment earlier in the chat. I'm sorry I missed it, but basically saying the same thing, like that Monty Williams hasn't exactly had like graceful exits from his last 2 NBA seasons, with arguably, I won't say better personnel, but equal or close to equal personnel. Might not be the best person to appoint. The other thing is like, so all the arguments for Joe, right? We've kind of already covered like that. He got appointed 2 days before before training camp started, that there was this really tight relationship between Ime Udoka and the other players. He didn't start with his own like self-appointed accompanying staff, and then despite that, lost staff members Will Hardy early and then Damon Stoudemire later. Like, so like maybe a top 10 all-time like difficult rookie coaching season of all time, and yet he's gotten us this far. And yet, if you run it back with Joe and he hires his own staff and he sort of fumbles it all again, then the immediate critique is going to be, well, the writing was on the wall. Like, how could you have gone back with Joe, despite all of those circumstances that I just mentioned? So it comes back to, like, I don't think that you can balance what's fair and what's necessary. And I think Brad Stevens probably needs to be a little bit brutal, a little bit cutthroat, and just be like, I'm sorry, like, you're awesome. You did so well despite the circumstances, but like, we've got these assets. It's kind of all we've got. The CBA is about to be a lot more prohibitive in like a year's time.
Man.
We need to act now. And so for those reasons, like, I'm sorry, mate. You got
Yeah, look, I know.
Come coach the Sydney Kings.
Yeah. Oh, dude, Scott Roth, the coach of the Jack Jumpers, is available, and which is sounds funny to people in the chat probably, but like both of these coaches have a lot more experience than Joe Mazzulla did.
That's crazy.
We're going to see because Brad hasn't had to make like a cutthroat decision yet. Like, really, right? Like, what's the biggest thing that he's done? He traded Kemba. That's like as far as cutthroat goes, and that's. Yeah, but other than that, it's been pretty smooth sailing. A lot of the moves have been widely accepted. The team he came in right after a down year. Look, I have no idea how likely this is or how possible this is, but it looks like Bob Myers is on the way out, who's not a coach, Ben. Not a coach. But
I think I know where you're going with this.
But we have a coach in the building who I believe is maybe the second best coach in the NBA after Eric Spoelstra. His name is Bradley, the President Stevens.
Oh my God.
Bradley, the President Stevens, hires Bob Myers, demotes himself, if you call it a demotion, back to the Celtics bench as the coach. And people might say, didn't the players already quit on Brad once? No, they did not. Go back and look at that season where they were about 500 and they lost to the Nets in round one. Look at who was on that team. Tristan Thompson and Daniel Tice were the double big lineup we were running. Jeff Teague played like 1,000 minutes. Like, that roster was a disaster. They led the league in COVID absences. Tatum had like long COVID. Jalen missed like the last month of the season with wrist injury. Like, it was an absolute train wreck from a roster perspective, not to mention the 4 teams that came off the bubble run, Celtics, Heat, Nuggets, Lakers, all collapsed the year after thanks to the short turnaround. So the revisionist history on quitting on Brad is ridiculous. And I think after this year, there were some comments in and after the Philly series about, yeah, no, we're working with Joe. The players working with Joe. We all wanted to go back to double bigs. Some weird kind of stuff about how the players felt about Joe. I think that if Brad Stevens walked back through that door, it's not Larry Bird walking through that door, but Brad Stevens walking through that door. I think Tatum, Brown, Brad Stevens, could this be the full circle moment that we are searching for? Because I think it could be. I don't think it's really likely, but that would be my hope.
I need time to process that. Why don't we'll run this Mazzulla post-game snippet, and then we'll come back to that.
Joe, I don't want to say you lost this team, but is there a disconnect between you and the players at this point? Is there something not quite working that might have worked in February or January that you're not telling them to lose by 28 points, but you're telling them to try? So is there a disconnect?
Yeah, that's where I have to be better, is figure out what this team needs to make sure that they're connected, they're physical, and they're together by the time we step on the floor.
What do you think caused that disconnect?
Not sure.
So basically an acknowledgement of a disconnect there, which we've kind of been dancing around here, Jake, for the past 5 or 10 minutes. Like, that's clear. And yeah, like, it comes back to, yes, okay, maybe it's the players. They're not executing the game plan. But if they're not really into the coach and what he's putting down, like, they're never going to pick it up. And therefore, like, you kind of got to get rid of the coach.
Yeah, I think you can say the players didn't play well enough and execute the game plan. But if the players don't believe in the game plan,
exactly,
then that's where. And I can't, like, it wasn't as bad as some of the quotes I saw kind of floating around Twitter when you actually watch the clip. But you can't admit that, Joe. I don't think. Like, he's
Maybe he's got a. We're speculating so much here. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go.
Thoughts are just flooding in my brain right now. But like maybe he has a sense that he's on the way out, and he's starting to like build a bit of a like excuse barrier for himself. I don't know. I'm a mess, Jake. I'm a mess. This is not where I expected us to be.
Look, and there's people in the chat with the Brad stuff. Brad's not coming back to coach. Probably not.
I believe that. Yeah.
Probably not. But like, what do you want from me? I'm just trying to come up with what I want. Okay.
You're just a man trying to grapple with the situation.
I'm a man where my team just lost by 1,000,000 points to the Miami Heat for the second time in like 3 years or 4 years in the conference finals. And I think maybe that's the point, is that like, yes, this hurts, but I forget where I got this quote from. Someone in the NBA media, but it's like things are often not anywhere near as bad or as good as they feel like in the moment. For example, November 2022, Ben, you and me at the pub. It's pregame before the Warriors game. The Celtics are 21-5. Life was good. Life was good.
Are you gonna divulge what I said to you in that moment?
Look, Ben may have said that we're probably going to the finals. We're probably going to win the finals. Duncan D's, thank you so much for the donation. Game plan doesn't fit the players, and that's on Joe. I agree to an extent. Like the best version of this team that we've seen was last year's team, and it was defense first identity, and the offense needed to be fixed to an extent, but they lent far too into whatever the offensive philosophy was, the drive and kick. Some of the weaknesses of this team were exposed with that strategy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as good as things were, November 21-5, as bad as things feel right now, we've been to 5 conference finals in however many years, 7 years. Conference finals again, finals the year before, like conference finals 2 years before that. Like, a lot of teams would be killing to be in our position. It's just, and people like, there's something broken with the fabric of this team. We've been one of the last 4 teams remaining again. So like, it can't be that broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do we say? Disappointment equals reality minus expectations, and the expectations were just so high this year. So like, yes, it's good zooming out. Like, I agree with you, Jake. It's great that they've got the Jays, like specifically, and Marcus Smart have gone this far, this many times, but like, it's still early days. Like I said, like the Jays are still young, 25 and 26, but they need to win for the narrative to not eventually be they could just never get over the hump. And prior to last year, the hump was the finals, and now the hump is officially like title or bust, really. So this is going to be a disappointing end, but like they're still so young. Like, Jason Tatum loves playing in Boston. He loves the fans. He's never really said anything to make us think anything otherwise. And, regardless of, how Jaylen Brown has navigated that and how fans feel about Jaylen Brown and his willingness to want and to stay into Boston, financially, there's just so much leverage for the Celtics to have him stay in town. So we've got these guys. They're 2 guys at a desirable position, like scoring wings who can defend. In Jaylen Brown's case, like when he wants to, when he's focused. They are essentially locked up long term unless something unprecedented happens with Jaylen Brown this offseason. There's a lot to be optimistic about going forward. We do need to start slotting in those pieces, though, as they start to transition into their age 27 prime, as it has been historically for other players. And I just think, not to circle back on this too much, but it might be a little bit risky to make Joe Mazzulla's longevity with the team part of or one of those pillars.
It just should not be a priority at all. Like, if to get sentimental about Joe Mazzulla.
Exactly.
And I don't think Brad will be. I don't think Brad's going to be like, oh man, I made this guy the coach, and now I'm going to have to fire him. And he wouldn't technically even have to fire him. Joe could just remain an assistant. I'm not sure how that works. Like, in the locker room, like, you used to be the head coach and now you're the assistant. That's something that they'll have to think about. But I think Joe definitely gets another job. Like, Yeah, the Celtics didn't win a title. Let's say he gets fired from the Celtics. Guarantee you he gets another assistant job in the NBA. Like, they just won 57 games.
So just to be clear, Joe's not going out on the head coach like hiring market and putting himself among Nick Nurse and Monty Williams and these other guys to like try and nab one of those vacant head coach roles. Like, probably not, right?
I would be surprised if he's in the top 5 of coaching options. And that's the point. Like, if all of these other teams that have coaching vacancies, where would they rank Joe Mazzulla on their board? And it's not top 3. It's probably not top 5. So does that answer the question about whether or not you should be keeping Joe Mazzulla? And I don't like the idea that it's a bad look to have 3 coaches in 3 years. It's not fair because it doesn't matter, because the coach that was supposed to be the coach for the next 10 was too horny and got fired. So, like, it wasn't because the players didn't buy in and yada, yada, yada. It was like a completely non-basketball related incident that led to Ime Udoka leaving. So, like, Joe, like, they had to put someone in there. And so the 3 coaches in 3 years thing, I don't think would be anything that people would cling to.
Yeah, especially, if you do appoint the right person in that role, then looking back in a couple of years, it's like, oh, we had Brad Stevens, we shuffled the deck a bit with a couple of coaches, and then we found our next guy and we moved on just as we were hitting the Jays prime there. Just to move on a little bit, and this goes back to, so I was reading through the Celtics blog Slack, and I'm not going to call out like specifically who said this, but someone in that Slack called out the fact that the Jays are finished products. Both of them. What? We can't expect any further development from either of them as far as what they're capable of on the court, as far as their leadership capabilities, any of the above. Based on you laughing at the question, Jake, I'm going to assume that you don't agree with that take.
I'm looking forward to going back and finding out who that was. Okay, Ben, I'm going to be 30 in about 6 weeks. I look back on myself at 25 years old, and I've learned a lot. I have personally gotten worse as a basketball player, but that has far more to do with me not playing a lot of basketball than anything else. But as far as my leadership, maturity, knowledge about life has grown exponentially. I think your years between 20 and 30 are some of your highest growth years, and I think they get more and more so as you get through your 30s. And then I'm not going to divulge your age here, but I'm not sure if you can.
I don't care.
Yeah, I know you don't care, but like, you're in your mid 30s as well. Like, did you learn anything from the ages 25 to 30? Did you get better at anything from the ages 25 to 30?
Yeah, like literally everything.
Literally
and
everything.
Like we gotta be clear, not comparing ourselves to NBA athletes, but just look at historically when players enter their like winning prime, not their physical prime, not their scoring prime, like those. I don't know, I'm gonna get killed for using Michael Jordan here, but like pre-championship Michael Jordan was arguably the most fun, exciting version of Michael Jordan to watch. Like, he was scoring like crazy, just accolades out his ass, just so good, but not playing winning basketball. And yes, as he transitioned into 1991, being 27, winning his first title, there was the Pippen draft pick. There was getting the right coaching personnel around him. There were several factors, but historically, LeBron is another factor. I'm going to get killed for using LeBron as my second comparison.
Yeah. There's plenty. Like, Steph Curry didn't win a title until he was like 27. Like, it would be an absolute statistical outlier if the Jays did not get better from here. Would be completely statistical outlier, especially for 2 guys that we know get better and better every year.
Yeah, and this commenter, Daniel, I can't scroll up and find the comment that basically said, like, are you kidding? Like, what are they going to do? Are they going to average 35? Like, it's not about scoring. Yeah. It's about on and off the court leadership. It's about, and Tatum's already like pretty elite at this, but like rim reads, knowing your personnel, like on both ends, like who you can set up and who you can work with on your own team, but also like how to break down opposing defenses as well. Like, clearly that's not a thing for them right now, playing against the Heat. They can't break down that Heat defense. As they get older, as they mature, as they become wiser, and there's this beautiful like coincidence of their athletic prime and the beginning of their mental prime. We've just seen it time and time again historically. Yeah. Like, they will get better at breaking down opposing defenses.
Yeah, I found the comment from DJ Daniel, who's been a little negative in the chat, which
that's all right. This is an open, safe space.
It's okay. There's no judgment here, but it's not about averaging 35, 40 points. Joel Embiid didn't average more points really than compared to last season, but he was one of the most efficient years of his career. Look at Steph Curry in his last couple of years, like arguably better than when he was in those like unanimous MVP seasons, when he was in the playoffs. His ability to get to the rim, his strength, his defense was completely different. Tatum has gotten bigger and stronger year after year. It's not about averaging 35. Tatum has gotten better as a post player this year. They didn't use it enough for some reason, but as Tatum gets stronger, I think turning Tatum into like a dominant, like power forward type scorer, having that in his toolbox is obvious. Tatum has just scratched the surface of having a floater. What do you think his floater looks like in 2 years? He just started using it. I think Tatum going back to, using the mid-range, I think there's going to be developments to Tatum's game, like across the board. His handle, you said his rim rates, like the growth as a playmaker over the past couple of years. Jimmy Butler is a prime example. Go back and look at what Jimmy Butler was doing when he was 25. Just nowhere near the type of player, the basketball IQ that you cannot teach, that cannot be replicated without years and years and years of experience, years and years and years of reps. You need these losses. And look, maybe we can get to silver linings at some point, but this could be like Tatum and Jalen and these guys maybe need a little wake up call with their mentality. But I don't know. I think it would be an absolutely astounding for either of them to get better between now and like 3 years from now.
Yeah, and folks in the chat, let us know how you feel. I mean, a lot of people very willingly let us know all of their feelings in the chat, and there's a lot of banter going on between Heat and Celtics fans right now, which is great. We appreciate your engagement. A comment here from a regular viewer over on our First of the Floor channel, Eric Weiss, who's with Sports Aptitude. Says they'll definitely improve. I have major questions about either of their leadership capabilities. They're not natural communicators, and neither has shown any proclivity for taking charge vocally, which is true, but also like totally typical of like someone 25 or younger. Maybe they should have demonstrated those capabilities, sooner. I guess we're running out of rope there as far as them developing those capabilities. But you would like to think that those are the more easily learned, like personality aspects going forward.
Yeah,
or am I grasping at straws?
No, I think it's a very hard question to answer, and we'd have to go back and really look through. But like, I don't know, Paul Pierce's growth as a leader, I think probably not a great leader when he was 25. Much better leader in 2008. And was that because he had Kevin Garnett? Was that because there was more talent? Was that because he was 30 plus? LeBron James, leadership kind of just comes and goes with how good his team is. And he's won plenty of basketball games. Michael Jordan punched his teammates in the face. Was that because he was a good leader? Or was it because he was literally the greatest basketball player of all time? Kawhi Leonard notoriously does not speak words, and they won a title. But that was because they had the veteran leadership of Kyle Lowry. So I don't think, it's impossible to win a title when your guys aren't like these natural born leaders. Tim Duncan, not a vocal leader.
There's a leadership spectrum. And maybe the Jays are still finding their place on it. And as far as like how we identify where they sit in that spectrum, we're all still sort of grasping at that as well as fans and pundits and whatnot. But yeah, I would agree that like they haven't demonstrated a lot of value there. So the fortunate thing is there's still plenty of time ahead of them for that.
Well, go ahead. I would like to say, like, people love to throw this stuff out, like, Ant Edwards and SGA are already better leaders, or Mark Dagnall's a better coach, or whatever. No one was saying this about the Jays when they were going to the conference finals when they were 20 or however old. It is so much easier to exceed expectations than it is to meet the expectations that the Celtics have right now. Like when expectations are low, the Thunder had one of the lowest win-loss totals coming into the season, and they didn't make the playoffs, but it's a massive success. It's just a completely different situation. And Anthony Edwards, has had his own issues with off the court stuff as well. Congratulations, you got bounced in the first round. Like his leadership's going to get called into question. It's all gravy when you're 21 and 22, man. Like, I'm sorry. Like, if we've learned anything, it's like leadership and all these like intangibles, I think, are easy to call out when things are going well, when things are going bad. I think Steph Curry is maybe one of the greatest leaders that I've seen. Like that's a guy that I think you can really point to and be like, what a great leader. But like, he also happened to be like one of the greatest players of all times. And
helps.
And as much as we love Tatum, I'm not sure I see like he's not Steph Curry. I think to ask him to turn into a top 10 player of all time is unfair. But can he be like a perennial top 5 guy, like a top 3, top 4 guy once he gets into his prime? He's already been a back-to-back first team All-NBA guy. And I think, the fact that he leads with his leadership on the court by being available every night. He doesn't load manage. He doesn't throw teammates under the bus. He supports coaches. He supported Joe last press conference. Like, I think there's other ways to go about it, and people want the KG rah-rah version. But like those guys, it's just different situation.
It's tough with Tatum as well because the conversation, we had this prior to this season as far as like what is everyone's elite skill. And I think with Tatum, we landed on that his elite skill is his rim reads. And that's really tough. Like, on the TNT replay, like Doris Burke isn't like, oh, look at that amazing rim read from Jason Tatum. It's like, it's not Sports Center material. He is elite at that. He probably does need to like, just to simplify it a little bit, like just shoot at a higher percentage, right? Like in order to like really elevate his game, and even not necessarily to a Steph Curry level, but just to manipulate defenses such that like he can actually execute those rim reads. If he's shooting at a higher percentage, if he's got a little bit more gravity defensively, which is tough because he's already drawing doubles on a regular basis, he can pull in defenses just a little bit more and open up opportunities for his teammates, and also just like hit more shots because he is capable of generating open mid-range looks for himself off the dribble. Certainly open 3-point looks for himself off the dribble. He just hit them at a really unfortunately low rate this season, a little bit last season as well. Basically, like since he's become like the guy, since it was no more Kemba, no more Kyrie, no more Gordon Hayward, no more anyone else that you could maybe attribute like the marquee player role to, his shooting percentages have dropped. And unfortunately for him to be the guy I think he thinks he is, and that we've sometimes think he is, and we hope that he can be long term, he does just need to shoot a higher percentage from the floor. Which is really simplifying it.
Yeah. No, he does. He does. Needs to be more efficient. I thought this year, like, he was better at the rim. Again, like something he improved at this year was much more efficient at the rim. And I think incorporating and I think this was part of like what Joe's influence as well is that we've been pushing Tatum away from the mid range. His second year in the NBA, that Kyrie year, which is also a disaster. Talk about bad leadership. Talk about falling short of expectations. Winning one game in the second round, but Tatum. Sorry, I forgot what I was saying. I got distracted by this comment about Yamadar and.
Sorry about that. I couldn't help myself. I had to bring it up.
Yeah, no, I love Yamadar, but Tatum he's going to get better. I think introducing the mid range just look. If people saw this Tom Brady comment, the expectations we have for Tatum, you gotta have to be semi-realistic, right? Like we all want Tatum to be as good as Steph Curry. We want him to be as good as LeBron James. But like, I think he's someone that's going to reach his ceiling, whatever it is. Like he gets better every year. Whether or not he turns into this guy that's, surefire, like, perennial Jokic level guy. I don't think that's the type of guy that he is. And if he does get to that level, he's going to be doing it a different way. Like clearly the game and the IQ comes to someone like Jokic or Steph in a different way. Like what's great about Tatum is his lack of weaknesses. He can get to the rim. He can shoot the three. He defends at a high level. He can handle the ball. He can play make. He can rebound at a high level. Like there's nothing you point to with Tatum that you're like, he can't do this at all. He can do all of it at a high level relative to the rest of the league. And that's what makes Tatum unique and special in a way. So he's incrementally, if he gets incrementally better at that over and over and over and over again, then maybe we do get there.
Yeah. There's just so much more to be optimistic about the fact that, we're led by this 25-year-old, and all of the shortcomings of this team, leadership and otherwise, are because we're led by a 25-year-old, or at least in great part due to the fact that we're led by a 25-year-old. And second to a 26-year-old, the optimistic take on that is that they are very likely, as we just covered in great detail, historically going to get better before they get any worse. What is also apparently going to get better, as I attempt to segue massively here, is the rest of this series, according to Al Horford. We're going to play his post-game comments right now.
This is a part of our journey right now, and right now we're in a low, and rightfully so. We're being counted out because we haven't been able to respond, but we're not out yet. It is 3-0. I know what it looks like. I think I saw it the other day, 0-149 or something like that. So, but we're not out yet. We're still kicking. One of 4 teams, they're still kicking.
Great, thanks, Al.
There's a lot there.
Is there? I feel like there's nothing there.
Well, I'm talking about the shirt. There's a lot with the shirt.
Yeah. Fashionably, there's plenty there.
I love the shirt. It's a little Cancun-y, though, no? It's a little I'm ready for holiday.
Yeah, airfares direct from Miami to Cancun, much cheaper than you have to go back, via Boston. So doesn't bode well for the Celtics.
Look, man.
It's a winner's shirt, and he's a loser today. That's not good.
So, I know, it was funny. Like Tatum also wearing his like all white thing. But you have to, I guess you could bring a outfit in case you lose as well. Just like bring a hoodie in case you do lose. So it's like whatever. Al's words are saying that we're going to come back 0-3, but it looks like they're about to hit like the 24/7 club down the street in South Beach, which, as someone that's been to some of those before, they've been fun. They are fun. And maybe that's what they need, Ben.
Yeah, it might loosen the fellas up a little bit, right? They've been playing a little tight. I don't know.
Couldn't hurt.
We're rapidly, Jake, running out of run sheet here. The next thing I've got is adjustments for... quickly.
Nice.
Quickly. Couple of things on Jaylen Brown before we get to adjustments, of which I think there are a few, if any at all. Jaylen Brown, quote, "We let our fan base organization down. It's just embarrassing." I agree. And then Gary Washburn said, and this is him like editorializing the post-game conference a little bit, that Jaylen Brown is biting his tongue from telling his truth. You can tell he has a lot on his mind. There's some real issues in that locker room. #Celtics, #Heat. Do you think is there much to that, or is this old Gary, our mate Gary, just trying to get some clicks here?
Gary, man. We could all go watch the press conference. Like, Jaylen
there is some off-camera stuff.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. But this is classic Gary. Jaylen's searching. They're all searching. And he doesn't know what to say, because what can you say when you put out a performance like that? And Jaylen has been a straight up disaster in this series. Like, if he's just solid in games 1 and 2, they might win, be up 2-0. But this Heat team is just brings all of the bad Jaylen things out. And honestly, it's not completely his fault, because they're putting him in spots to fail. Y'all hyped the youth of the Celtics. Okay, so he had the same youth. Look, what? But like, okay, you're right. The OKC team didn't win a championship. What would you like the Celtics to do? Oh, well, trade Tatum, trade Jaylen. Let's go. Let's start again. Like, you're talking about quitting. This is adversity. This is part of the story, guys. Like, who's to say they don't win the title next year or the year after? Like,
this is where we earn our stripes as fans. And like, I'm going to go out a little bit later. I'm going to wear my Celtics beanie. It's cold here in Australia. It's winter. I'm going to wear, Celtics shit when I go outside and just be like, I'm with this team, ride or die. It's obviously very disappointing, but like, it's sort of the beauty of sports fandom and all the passion we put into it. And like 99.9% of the time, it ends in like total pain and suffering. It's like either you win the championship or you fucking don't and lose, and it sucks. And then there's like, I guess the other side of it is there's all these teams who are just squandering in mediocrity, who like never really experience massive highs or massive lows, right? Like maybe their high is like, oh, we got the 6th pick in the draft, like, they start doing all the ringer Kevin O'Connor deep dives into like, the depth of the draft and like, oh, maybe he'll turn out good. Inevitably they don't. They leave in free agency because their franchise sucks and they start again. And like, that's their fandom experience. So like, you have to sort of keep that in mind when you consider like, yes, this is total pain, and like falling short of like high expectations sucks a lot. But to have had those expectations to begin with, and to have had a objectively successful season is a lot of fun. And we were talking about the youth of the Jays in that like we can just kind of run this back again next year. Obviously not run it back like for like, but we can begin to look forward to next season almost immediately.
Mate, I've got pickup basketball tonight. I'm gonna be wearing a Celtics shirt and I'm gonna be copping. I'm gonna be copping it. Like, if you guys want to quit, then go join another team. Hop on the next team. But like, I have loved following the journey of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart and all these guys, and they are not perfect. Not perfect. But, I am far from perfect as well. And like, if you don't know us, like we're the First of the Floor podcast. We ride the line between, we're just like diehard fans, analysis. We love talking about basketball. We love the team. We're going to be honest about it. Like, we're not going to get up here and be like, this is great. So happy we just lost by 1,000,000 points to the Heat when we've been favored to win every single game. Like, obviously not. But like, love the Celtics. I still believe that these guys can get to a title eventually. But like, you're not going to win the title every year. And these guys are almost a victim of their own success. Like, maybe they should have just lost to the Bucks in Game 7 in their rookie year and not gone to the conference finals. Mm-hmm. Maybe they should have lost to the Raptors in the second round in Game 7 in the bubble and not gone to the conference finals. So then when they did get to the conference finals last year and made the finals, that it felt like, wow, look at this. And then so losing this year is not as big of a deal. Like, John Wrigley gets it. He's from Boston. He's got no choice, but he still loves him. Yeah. Look, stick with it, dudes.
Absolutely. Let's go. What else have we got on the run sheet here?
Well,
as we look to wrap up.
Like,
you got adjustments that you want to throw out there?
Well, I don't know about adjustments, but like maybe this is like maybe a down the line thing. But like, and we're gonna do one more late night show thing as well. So at least, well, it's really sad for everybody in the chat. Like, we're fun guys. We were hoping to be like up 2-0, 1-0, win today, have a good time, party vibes. I was gonna try and challenge Bobby for the coolest bucket hat, but I'm not doing it on a loss.
No, how can you?
I'm not gonna do it on a loss.
Bobby did it.
Bobby did it, yeah. But he's in Miami. So
that's true.
Get away
Great
with
point.
It. But yeah, so I'll save it. But we've got some, we can rank the biggest problems and we can dive into how we're gonna fix it. But like, we'll be back for Game 4.
We've got at least one more of these shows. Hopefully a couple more, depending on how the Celtics respond. You want to hope that they're finally not the betting favorites in this upcoming game. Shout out FanDuel. So maybe like they've lost all of these games that they're the favorites in, at least in this series. Maybe that bodes well. Adjustments for Game 4. Let's get a little bit crazy here.
Yeah.
Right? It's late night. Sam Hauser. Like, if this team's success is predicated on like making threes, you have to make threes for Missoula Ball to function. Get Sam Hauser out there.
Yeah.
And like,
should have been playing the whole playoffs.
Well, and they're already going at Derek White. It's not like we've got this lockdown defense that we don't want to present any faults in by throwing in Hauser or like a not quote unquote, like a guy with defensive prowess. Like we haven't demonstrated that across our roster. So just like at the very least, throw in Hauser and just like having throw them in from like deep range because we know that he can do that.
I can't believe Hauser hasn't been playing all playoffs. Like he proved to me that he could play in the playoffs throughout the regular season. The fact that Joe went completely away from him, especially to not start this series where there's going to be a lot of zone, you're going to need to make shots, is annoying. But yeah, I would start Rob, and I would play Hauser as your eighth guy. And so, because Grant, and play Grant as well, but it's like maybe not as well. Maybe you play Hauser in the Grant minutes instead, because I feel like some of the Grant magic ran out a little bit as well. The thing is, right, like, and this is the part of the problem, is the Heat aren't playing us like we have good shooters. Like, did you notice any times Grant didn't take a wide open three today? No, because they're not able to get any of these looks. So it's like, what's the point of being out there if you can't even get any of these attempts up? Whereas Hauser doesn't need breathing room. He'll jack it up with a hand in his face, coming off the screen, whatever. So at least he's going to get you some looks potentially. Adds an element to the offense that they don't have, and that's what's frustrating. Is it's like they have this weapon that and next year that's something that I definitely like to see more of. Let's get our version of Duncan Robinson going, like a legit guy that can go 4 for 5 from 3 and like break a game open or take a game back. Hauser has to be in there, trapping Jimmy, or at least not giving up the switch onto like certain guys. Derek White, could we stop leaving this guy on an island to hang out to dry? This poor dude, man. He's not equipped. He's not equipped to handle Jimmy one-on-one. We saw it last year too. Play Pritchard. I don't know. That hasn't gone great, but like at this point, I think
just send help. Send help for Derek. Like just on the Derek front, like they did it in a few possessions, and I think like the Heat do so well is like each time I was trying to like sort of mentally catalog what defense the Heat were running just for a quarter. I was like, that's what I'm going to focus on because like this game isn't going anywhere for the Celtics. And like literally every time the Celtics brought the ball up, they were in a different kind of zone. They were in man. They switched their pick and roll coverage. They were trapping. They were in drop. Like it's like iTunes shuffle for defense. Yeah. And like we should at least be throwing that at Jimmy Butler. Like just don't give them like Derek White solo in isolation every single time. Like at least throw something different at them. Like mix it up a little bit. Sure, especially even just halfway through this game. Like you're shitting the bed. Nothing's working. Try something else. I don't understand it.
I don't understand it either. And then like a couple of times, and I feel like they went to some trapping of Jimmy in the second quarter and it worked a couple of times.
For like snippets of time.
Yeah.
And then they're just like, cool, that was fun.
Yeah. You know what? I actually don't want stops. Stops are for nerds. I don't know, man. Like, mix it up. Like,
my God.
But it honestly doesn't feel like it's in their toolkit, in their golf club bag at this point. Where like they don't have 2-3 zone, 1-5 zone, box and one. Like go, like try all these different options because they haven't practiced it all year. It's either drop or switch, and that's it. Because they didn't practice it all season.
The only thing that's in their golf club bags are literal golf clubs rather, as they prepare to go down to Cancun. That's probably that joke.
That was a good joke, but yeah, maybe that could
didn't stick the landing. Other adjustments for Game 4, other than win. What else are you trying at this point?
I would personally try shooting the ball in to the net more.
I don't think they've considered that.
I actually don't think they have, Ben, because it really doesn't feel like that Jaylen Brown has considered shooting a 3-pointer into the net. I need the orange ball to go in more.
Well, settle down, Nate Duncan. I mean, come on, man. Is this per cleaning the glass?
Per cleaning the glass, orange ball, not in enough. It's so much pain, dude.
Subscribe for more stats.
Like turnovers, don't do those. Less of those. Be good. Come on, man.
I like at this point, and this is sort of typical for most playoff series, right? Like at this point, maybe not this early. It's only Game 4, but like teams just know everything about each other. and it just comes down to like who wants it more, which is a trope, cliche, all of those things. But it's like it's a cliche for a reason because it's a thing time and time again. The Celtics just like they need to play like they don't want to be like desperately do not want to be embarrassed by being swept by the 8th seed. And if they come out with like being motivated by that, it could be enough because talent wise, like as we know, like they have it over the heat, but just motivationally, it doesn't seem to be there. And we're learning more about why that might be based on some of the post game quotes about Joe Mazzulla and the disconnect there. But that needs to be resolved in the short term. Otherwise, this is going to be our second last show of Celtics Late Night for the postseason.
Yeah. Well, it's been. I'm having a good time. Before we go though,
we've got some stuff.
Yeah. Like, what do you want to do next? We've got like
non-Celtic stuff. Yeah.
Well, actually, we'll tease this because we don't want to get too deep into the trades yet. I ran 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Jaylen Brown trades. Now, everybody in the chat, relax and just understand this is for fun. And I actually would not trade Jaylen Brown. But if you do want to trade Jaylen Brown, you have to understand that he has 1 year left on his current deal. And if you were going to trade him, you're probably going to need a wink deal with the other team that's like, we're trading him to you because Jaylen said that he's happy to go to this team and he will sign an extension or a max when he is a free agent the following year. So I think the most common one that's going to come up is going to be Portland. And there's 2 ways it can go with Portland. It's either the Dame Lillard path or it's the Anthony Simons number 3 overall pick path. I personally, if I was going to trade with Portland, would be going for Dame Lillard, not the like hope that number 3 pick turns into Jaylen Brown path. So I've got this, which is
this is what it's come to. I'm all for it, but yeah.
this is for fun. I repeat, and it would be like a sign and trade thing because Grant, to get the money to work. Because I think one of the biggest issues on the Celtics is clutch time offense. Obviously, Dame time.
Yeah.
How much pain did that cause you to see that?
I'm already at maximum pain, so like I can't feel more pain than what I can feel right now. Everything's on the table. So this is when we do it, right? And like we're not going to apologize for it. Like we're fans. This is the time of year where you're like trade everyone, trade your second best player.
Never.
Well, a little bit, yes.
A little bit.
So
a little bit.
It's okay, but really just like max extend Jaylen Brown and go from there. But I guess to just bring your teaser home there, Jake. Like you and Spoonie are going to do a podcast. Tomorrow evening, so around 8 p.m. Eastern time. That's going to be streaming just on our YouTube channel, so not on CLNS. That's going to be on the First to the Floor YouTube channel. So if you're watching, you like this show, head over there, just search us on YouTube, First to the Floor. Live pods every other day that we're not doing this show, and then in the off season, like continual live shows. We'll do all kinds of sicko deep dives as we get further and further into the off season. Content becomes less and less. We have to start manufacturing our own stuff. That's when things really spice up for us. So excited to listen to what you and Spoonie have going on tomorrow there, Jake.
No, it's going to be great tomorrow. We'll do more pain, slightly. And Spoonie, like he's by far the best analyst of the 3 of us. And so he's got he can often help us guide our vibes into rational places that, make sense from Nexus and O's point of view, which is fun. But yeah.
Do we want to wrap? Do we want to get into our non-Celtics really late night topics, or are you just?
I know people want to do like probably off-season stuff's probably the most exciting. But so one of my favorite topics is the draft and stash guys that we have overseas. So we could talk a little Johan Begaron. We could talk Madar. I don't know. I don't know. What is the chat? What does the chat want to talk about?
Let us know in the chat what direction you want to go. We can go completely non-Celtics. We can go draft and stash or
Ja Morant?
Somewhere in between.
Oh, question for you. You're a parent. I heard this life advice on the Ryan Russillo podcast, and this guy talking about how his 4-year-old had become a massive Ja Morant fan prior to the gun wavings and the strip club photos. And now he's like, I wish my 4-year-old wasn't a favorite, like talking about Ja Morant, and every time he sees a number 12, is like, oh, it's Ja. Would you have any issues trading for Ja? Your kid being a fan of Ja?
I'm not a 4-year-old. Just keep them off social media, right? Just
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
them
Right?
keep them off all the dangerous
Alright.
parts of NBA media. Let
I
them watch
see
the
it. Yeah.
games. That's fine, but
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to lie convincingly to a 4-year-old. So I'm not
I
so
would
worried about
imagine
that.
so. I see people asking for some more Jalen trades. Um, I'll give you one more here
Give one
c-
more.
because this is the Jalen Brown, Ime Udoka, the Rockets are going to try and sign Harden and become competitive thing. This is like the retooling, start again package,
Wow.
and get ready for for Jason Tatum's prime. You talk about guys that have dog. Tari Eason and Jayshawn Tate are made of dog, rebounding, loose balls, defense, and then Jabari Smith. Obviously, you have the pedigree there, and I think could play well of Tatum, but like that's a different that's a whole different path. Like that's like okay, we're probably taking a slight step back. We're in Crazy Town. You guys asked for it, man. Right?
Yeah. You stay up late enough, you get Crazy Town. All right.
What about Atlanta? I have an Atlanta one too, but you know, I'll say you guys got to watch. No Jalen. I don't like Jalen Green. I think he's.
Either.
You think you're having a bad time now? Wait till Jalen Green's on this team. Jesus Moses. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's food for thought, if nothing else, Jake. Like I love a spicy speculative trade. So you've given me, and clearly the folks in the chat as they respond to that, a lot to think about as well. What team? Say that we do get knocked out. Say the in the outside chance that we do get eliminated and we do lose this series.
It is
What
possible.
remaining? It is possible, technically.
Wait, hang on. We just have to address SS Austin here. Appreciate you with the.
Oh yeah, thanks, man.
Oh, hang on. I missed this from Random Tech as well. How do I show this comment? How many coaches will they have in the next 3 years? Over under 4. Next 3 years over under 4? Is that even possible?
Under. It's under.
Under.
Please be under.
Yeah. Okay. So the coach thing, Nick Nurse, I guess they're both kind of the same question, is like Nick Nurse is probably the obvious choice. It's important to remember, chat, that like, what did Nick Nurse do without Kawhi Leonard playing at a number 1 in the NBA, best player in the world level? Nothing. They lost to the Celtics, a Celtics team that had Daniel Tice starting and Shemi Ojale and Brad Wanamaker as the 6 and 7 man. What did they do last year? They were so bad they ended up with like the 4th pick. They missed the playoffs this year, right? Yeah, missed the playoffs this year. So like, just temper expectations with, when it comes to coaching. What I think we need is I actually think Monty Williams is the guy that I would bring in. Kind of going back and forth between Nurse and Monty. I know he's had a couple of flameouts, obviously. But I love
glaring flameouts.
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
What I want is a guy that can connect to the players, and I thought that's what Ime Udoka did well. Clearly, is it like Tatum's talked about how it's his favorite coach of all time. He was able to hold these guys accountable in the media. He was defense first. I think this team's best chance to win a title is by going back to that defense first identity. But what I like about Monty Williams is he's a really creative offensive coach. Tyronn Lue, another great option. Again, though, like, and this is the thing, championship coaches do not become available. Is it like Tyronn Lue didn't win a championship without LeBron James? Sam Cassell, no. If he can't, Sam Cassell has been interviewing with every other team in the NBA for like 3 years and no one will give him a job. I would not like to be the first. We're not bringing in another rookie head coach. If we're firing Missoula, we're bringing in like someone experienced, I would think. Yeah, someone with experience. But then at the same time, like, who's the next Ime? And then you get back to revisionist history with Ime. He was not perfect. Oh, man, the Will Hardy thing.
The one that got away.
Oh, man.
What about Frank Vogel? Because the year that the Lakers won in 2020, they, I believe, had the league's top defense. And yes, they had some personnel that was clearly responsible for that, are closer to his prime LeBron James. And I guess the same could be said for Anthony Davis as well. But like Frank Vogel clearly knows how to coach a defense. And for the identity crisis that we've had all year and looking to sort of get back to our roots there, like Frank Vogel, he's got to be a good candidate. I believe he has Boston ties as well. Like he might have used to have been an assistant coach or in some way associated with the Celtics. I'll double check that. But yeah, for me, Frank Vogel has maybe less of the toxic ends to season that Monty Williams has had. But really, like, it's just easy to say in the shadow of what happened in this game 3. But like, I kind of prefer either of those guys to Joe at this point. Is where I'm at.
I think you have to be there at some point. At this point, it's just hard. And yeah, I know those guys have won titles, but you have to think about those rosters too. It's like the talent in the NBA is always going to, like, the Celtics are going to win a title because of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, most likely, or not. And that's where we're going to end up. I thought that we were at a coaching disadvantage, but, you know, and then I don't know if we're talking about roster stuff, like how do we get that? Like watching the Nuggets and the yesterday, right? It's not really a fair comparison because Jokic is absurd. But like Jamal Murray is this very comfortable ball handler, could run pick and roll, get into different spots and create his own shot and not turn the ball over in tough spots.
Yeah.
So we don't have that player. I think Tatum can maybe get to that place in 3 or 4 years, but it's like, that's probably the most glaring. Everything we heard last offseason when we traded for Malcolm Brogdon was like, that's him. Pick and roll, doesn't turn the ball over. Did not do that tonight.
No. What is it? Have 0 points in this game?
0 points.
0 points. Yeah, it's really tough. And kind of like how we've seen an uptick with Derek White this year, you kind of, on one hand, want to hope that we're going to have that with Malcolm Brogdon. Will we get the same health luck with Brogdon for a second year in a row, even with his sort of lowered role minutes-wise? Like, I wouldn't bet money on it. So, yeah, that's tough. And, you know, Marcus Smart is probably our most reliable ball handler, our most reliable play initiator, and yet like you're not just gonna like throw him the ball and be like, go get me a bucket, right? In a crucial playoff game. And so yeah, like roster wise, there are holes there, and I think it kind of needs to be the Jays getting better to make up for that, because we just don't have the capacity to acquire talent. And you know, we were talking about the CBA off air, Jake, before we went live. Like, I think so from next year, once you hit that, essentially that hard cap, that apron, you can't throw picks into trades. And so while we've got all this tradable salary, like we can't throw value into those pieces of salary to trade for, like, you know, we can't combine like Brogdon and White and whoever else for like a max slot to acquire someone without, you know, we don't have the ability to throw any added incentive to any team that might do the dance with us in that. So we're kind of running out of time and running out of options as far as how we can fill that gap.
Yeah, but Danilo Gallinari is coming back next year, Ben.
Oh, I completely forgot. We've got the song.
Yeah.
We've got the
Danilo Gallinari.
unimpressive footage of him moving so timidly and slowly.
That's how he moves.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. You're right.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the CBA stuff, because on one hand, it's like, yeah, the Celtics will be limited with what they can do, but that also means that the rest of the league will be limited in what they can do. And so these deals that you see happening with around contenders, that, you know, it goes to the highest bidder for whatever. If teams can't throw in draft picks because they're at certain levels, well, then as a negotiator, you're like, hey, man, I would love to give you 2 first-round picks. I would love to give you 2 first-round picks, but I can't give you 2 first-round picks because the CBA is stopping me. So maybe like deals still get done, but just without the picks. Like, it's going to be very interesting. Or we see a continuation of what we saw this year, where we had the Milwaukee Bucks trade 5 second-round picks for Jay Crowder, who literally could not get on the court against Miami.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Hey,
well, look, that's Cabs, big Cabs guy. If only he was eligible for our playoff roster.
Is it JD Davidson? Is that the ball handler? Talk about guys that can run pick and roll.
Yeah. Yep.
Is he the
Elite
prince that
pick
was
and roll ball
promised?
handler. What else we got here? So we did I ask you yet what remaining team are you hitching your wagon to?
All right. Well,
Did we talk about that?
like you mean out of the? Oh, right.
Like,
You mean
so I guess it's going to be the Heat, right?
Heat and
Unless
the
the
Nuggets?
Celtics
Yeah.
pull off the miracle, the Nuggets, or like technically the Lakers, but obviously I'm not going to include the Lakers in the question. So
I
Heat
will
or the
say,
Nuggets.
like back yesterday in a different time when the world was Celtics down 0-2 and the Lakers went up 3-0. I mean, went down 3-0. I did not think I could feel such joy. And
Mm.
and then the tears of the Lakers going down 3-0 brought me real happiness. And then today happened, and look at us. Look at who was I? Who was I to laugh at them when this is what was happening to us? But I think I'll be going for the Nuggets. But at the same time, if the Heat were able to beat the Nuggets, does this make our loss look far less damaging? Because I think it definitely does. Like if the Heat just continue this play and beat the Nuggets, where everybody like they're a massive favorite going in again,
Mhm.
then that changes things a little bit.
It's hard not to root for the Heat just from the narrative perspective alone. And an 8 seed, losing the play-in game, still getting into the playoffs, and then just like basically tearing their way through these like insane upper echelon teams, getting all the way to the finals, and then beating like a 2-time All MVP and a team in the Nuggets that are just humming on all cylinders. That's a crazy NBA story. And as a sports fan, like I'm so down for that, and I'm down for like as much as I won't want to watch the Celtics scenes in this, the 30 for 30 in like 10 years time or whatever like that. That's like sports, like beautiful narrative there. So it'll be tough. I also I don't feel I've almost got a little Stockholm syndrome with the Heat in that like I don't hate them really at all, and I really respect and admire Jimmy. Losing even like a game, losing a quarter, losing a possession to the Sixers, pain every time. I hate the Sixers. The process is a sham and one of the most just disgusting sort of things to ever happen in sports history. I have no respect, no time for the Sixers. I cannot emphasize that enough. I don't feel that way about the Heat. And so like it'd kind of, from my perspective, be like no love lost, no hard feelings. Like, all right, you played really well. Good on you. Like, go and beat the Nuggets. It's a really good sports story. And I said this, I went to game 4 of the finals last year alone. That was tough. And as Steph Curry was taking over in the fourth quarter, I had this overwhelming sense of like, we are just the antagonists in someone else's story, Steph Curry being the protagonist. And that kind of like, it just took over for me. And I was able to actually like sort of step outside of my physical self, stick with me here, and like watch Steph Curry be great, even though I'm obviously a massive Celtics fan. And so, yeah, it was weird. I never expected that of myself. And so it's similar with the Heat. Like, okay, like it's just not our time, and they're clearly on one this year, and I might find myself cheering for them in the finals. Also, I'm not sure if he's watching, but I've got a good mate, Dice, who is a massive Nuggets fan, and just the smugness factor that would be emanating from him if the Nuggets won probably plays into my preferential treatment of the Heat as well. So,
man, when you was talking about that, we are going to feature heavily in the Steph Curry documentary, the Jimmy Butler documentary.
Yeah. Are we going to be like the Pistons in like The Last Dance? Is that going to be us? Is that
the LeBron James documentary?
Yeah.
Like LeBron James, we've gone down to in the Heat version, in the Cavs version when he made the finals. Like, this is the problem with being like really good, but not quite good enough, is that we are going to be in these docos a lot.
Yep.
And it's going to be bad. And it's going to be sad. Unless Banner 18, baby. It's coming. You never know.
4 straight against the Heat. I guess that's where we need to wrap it up, Jake. I don't know. Have you got anything else you want to add before we call it a day?
No, I mean, it's good to see the Lakers go down. I really enjoyed that. I still like believe in this team, like going forward into the future from Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, specifically Jason Tatum. I would say like out of everything that I believe in like Jason Tatum's ability to be the best player on a championship team once he gets to his prime. It's on a stepping stone, steps to success. Is that where we're going?
So yeah, just Aussie Phil with a comment in the chat. So is that it then? The Celtics are officially a stepping stone. No, we're just deep in our feelings. It's fine. This is what it's all about. It's okay. They'll be fine. Banner 18 incoming.
I like this. Plot twist. Where is this like Shutter Island?
Yes.
We're in the midst of it.
Love
the
it.
Documentary.
All right, Jake, this was fun. Everyone in the chat, thanks for sticking with us. You could easily be excused for just like shutting the laptop, turning off the TV, going to bed after a terrible Celtics performance, going down 0-3 against the Heat. We will be back for at least one more show after game 4, hopefully as the Celtics are heading back with a win under their belts, back to TD Garden to, who knows? No, I'm not going to go there.
So
I'm
weird.
not going to go there.
Do we even want that?
Do
we want them to win? You want them to win?
Swept. Yes, of course.
All right. I don't know.
I'm not prepared for not having the Celtics in my life yet. Like it's all, even though it's the conference finals, it's all come about so quickly. Like I need time to process yet. Was not expecting a sweep to the 8 seed Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals, and yet here we are. All right. So Spoonie and Jake, they'll be back with a podcast live on the First to the Floor YouTube channel. Subscribe there if you haven't already. At about 8 p.m. tomorrow. This show and that show will both be spun up as an audio podcast on our audio podcast feed. You can find that everywhere, including Spotify and Apple. And that's it. Jake, love your work, mate. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Celtics in 7. See ya.